Please join me in welcoming the moderator of tonight's debate, the Honorable John T. Fry.
Thank you. It's a pleasure to be here tonight. We're going to start right off, and John, opening statement. Yes.
Folks, good evening. I'm glad everyone is here today. It's been a beautiful spring day, but here we are. Thank you for coming this evening. My name is John Guevara, and I'm running for Sully District Supervisor. I've lived in the district for 15 years. My wife, Marilyn, and I have been married for 21 years. We've raised 2 boys here in Sully District, Peter and Nathan, and both of them attend Fairfax County Public Schools. In fact, one of them is going into high school next year. Can't believe time has flown so quickly. My life has always been a life of service. At the age of 17, I joined the military and enlisted, and was enlisted in the Signal Corps. I was later commissioned in the Army as a Signal Corps officer and served with distinction for 15 years. In fact, I even served during wartime as well. I have been your HOA president. I have coached your kids at CYA, baseball, t-ball, soccer, you name it, I've coached it. I am your son and daughter's Sunday school teacher. I was on the Navy Elementary School PTO board, and I've helped out also with the needy and the hungry in our community. I'm vice president on the board of directors at Western Fairfax Christian Ministries, a local food pantry right here in Sully. As a professional, I am an IT manager. I'm a consultant by trade. I manage large and very complex projects for federal government and also commercially. And I manage large budgets and large payrolls as well. I've lived here in Sully for 15 years and in the community for over 20 years. And because of that, I have very deep ties to our community. Since I moved here, real estate taxes have gone up over 140%. Inflation rate has stayed at 47%. That's a huge, huge gap. That's real money in your pockets. And our schools aren't faring well either. In fact, 30% of Hispanics and 20% of blacks here in the community are deemed ready for college. Overall, 60% of high school graduates are ready for college. That's a huge problem. The budget right now for solely for the Fairfax County Public School Systems is $2.6 billion. Yet our performance isn't matching that up. And by the way, Kathy Smith is asking for a 100% pay raise on top of that. Folks, I'm running for Sully District Supervisor because I want to promote an effective and sustainable county government that serves our community without further burdening us as residents. I am that new leadership. I am that new vision for Sully District, and I believe that with your vote and your support, I will beat Kathy Smith in November. Thank you.
First, everybody hear me okay? Yep. I want to thank everyone for coming. It's a good turnout, and this is an important election. My name is John Litzenberger, and I'm running for Sully District Supervisor. The reason I'm running is that I'm running to defend the quality of life in the Sully District. It's been under duress lately between traffic jams, taxes, the schools are having major issues, the citizens are concerned. I hope to change that. As your planning commissioner, I've been in that job for 8 years. It's very similar to the supervisor's job. What I would do if I was elected, I would focus on growing the economy, broadening the tax base. Right now, as Mr. Guevara mentioned, the taxes are going right through the roof. The homeowners are having to pay more, the businesses are having to pay more. In fact, the businesses, they pay real estate taxes, fee poll taxes, and on top of that, if you're by the metro, you pay what they call a C&I tax. The Gannett Corporation, which has been here for over 20 years, they announced in January they were splitting into 2 companies and leaving Fairfax County. Why? Because they mentioned the taxes, transportation, some other issues. I'm going to focus on the taxes. I want to broaden the tax base, increase revenues that way, and keep the tax rate constant. But taxes aren't the only way to get things done. As your plan commissioner, I helped coordinate amenities to the business community, the citizens, and the county staff. Those amenities included $7 million worth of athletic fields for our youth sports, not one penny of taxes. I helped coordinate $13 million worth of road improvements, not one penny of taxes. That's what I do. I get amenities for Sully through the development process. And if I'm elected, I'll continue to do that. I've been doing it for 8 years, I'll continue to do it. And there's about a 3 to 4 year learning curve to learn that kind of thing. There's a lot of laws, ordinances, things like that you have to learn so you don't make any mistakes. Lastly, I'm retired from the military. I would be a full-time supervisor. Thank you.
Good evening, I'm Brian Schoeneman. I want to thank you all for being here tonight. I especially want to thank Ralph Hubbard and Vicki Hall and the rest of the Sully District Committee for putting on this debate tonight. Guys, thanks for being here. I mean, it's a beautiful day outside. It's opening day for baseball season. The Orioles won. I'm sorry the Nets didn't. We got a baseball game tonight. We got a basketball game tonight. It could have been somewhere else. But you decided to be here tonight. Whether or not it's because you're supporting a candidate or whether you wanted to come here to learn more about us, the folks who are asking for your vote, you showed up. And that's more than half the battle. I've lived in Fairfax for almost 10 years now, and over a lot of those years I've been talking to my friends, my family, my neighbors, my colleagues about the issues that confront us, about our concerns, about our fears, about our hopes and our dreams for the future. One of the things that I've learned is that no matter what our differences are, what our different races are, our different colors, creeds, religion, political persuasion, even where we fall on the political spectrum, we have a lot of things in common. We all want our kids to go to good schools. We all want roads and transit that gets you where you need to go in a safe way and quickly. We want a government that's responsive, that listens. And we want elected officials who care about the people that they represent and who are willing to step up and fight for them every day. I'm running for Sully Supervisor because I love Fairfax County. I think Fairfax is one of the greatest places to live, work, and raise a family, and I want to keep it that way, and I know you do too. I am committed to running this race the way I've run from the beginning on ideas and putting forth a positive vision for our county. That vision is informed by my faith and by our shared Republican ideals. Working together, we can keep taxes low while keep holding elected officials accountable when they fail to control spending. We can create an economic environment where entrepreneurs can create jobs, where red tape doesn't stagger and stifle innovation, and where businesses, large and small, want to move to Fairfax because of how great it is. We can create a government. We, the people, can create a government and restore our trust in the government that we created. And we can have elected officials who are open, honest, transparent, and listen to the concerns of all the voters. That's what I intend to do. I am committed to working hard every day, listening every day, learning every day, and fighting every day for all of the citizens in Sully District. And I'm going to work every day from now until April 25th to convince you that I'm the best candidate, not only to win in November, but to serve you for the next 4 years. And I'm going to work hard every day to make sure that Sully and Fairfax remain the best place to live, work, and raise a family in America. Thank you all again for being tonight. I look forward to talking about issues and ideas throughout the rest of this campaign.
All right, now we're going to get into the questions. These questions all came from the audience. And so let me start with question number 1. How will you vote on budget proposals that include increases to the property tax rate and/or increases to the property tax payments by the average homeowner? Will you hold the line on taxes, and how do you define that line?
Well, thank you for the question. My campaign, as said from the very beginning, and I've always made it very clear that taxes is the problem here. I've knocked on over 1,200 doors since last week, and I mean, it's been remarkable how much people keep telling me the problem in Sully and Fairfax County is taxes. You're telling me loud and clear, roll back the taxes. It's hurting me. It's hurting my economy, my personal economy. Business owners are telling me, please get rid of the B poll tax. Stop this increase. Stop this hurting. We have over 15% of retail vacancy space and office space vacancy in Fairfax County. And yet, we on top of that have a B poll tax. It doesn't, I can't register that. I don't understand why we continue to be the problem when we're trying to grow the economy. That does not grow the economy here in Fairfax County. To me, when we say hold the line, to me that's very clear that we're not going to raise taxes until we get our economic house in order, until we start getting businesses back here in Fairfax County and keep them here, not go out and stay out the way they've been doing for the last few years. My incentives would be very clear. Number one, I would immediately lead the fight to get rid of the B poll tax and start growing the economy with our businesses here in Sully District.
Well, as you heard in my opening statement, taxes are the problem here. How do you fix that? Well, you grow the economy, grow the tax base. You keep the rate the same. We have no control over the depreciation of value, and that's where if there's a shortage, the value of supply and demand, the value of the property goes up, and the taxes are reflected in that. You've got to keep the rate the same. That's what's chasing businesses out of Fairfax County. It's the tax rate. Homeowners have the same thing. What really irritated me about Mrs. Bulova, now she meant well, but as the rates fell after the bubble burst in 2008, she increased the tax rate. Now that the property values are coming back, they keep it the same. To me, to be fair, if you're going to increase the rate because the values are going down, you got to decrease them when they go up, not keep it the same and just go spend the money somewhere else. Thank you.
Yeah. I agree with my colleagues, taxes are a problem. And the reality, the problem with taxes is not so much, it's the rate, definitely, it's the fact that assessments are rising and the tax rate stays the same, which means our average tax bill across the county is going up about $185 this year, and we're keeping the rate the same. That's what the Democrats do. It's a bait and switch. When the tax rate goes up, it's because real estate assessments have fallen, so we need to keep revenue the same. When the assessments go up, they keep the rate the same, but you're actually paying more in taxes. And, well, that's keeping revenue stable as well. It's not right. And we need elected officials who are willing to come out there and say that. The point that Mr. Litzenberger was bringing up, which is a good point, and it's something we need to talk about, and one concern that I have with Mr. Guevara's issue with the default tax, if we're rolling back taxes, we have to pay for that. If we reject the B-poll tax, and I don't argue that it's a good idea for us to look at that, we've got to find $150 million in revenue to replace that. If we lower assessments or lower the tax rate to keep assessments the same, we've got to find that money. We've got to find those cuts. That's why we have to focus not just on taxes, but also on cutting spending. I think that's one of the critical problems that's out there. And we've got a government in the county level that does a very good job of trying to do and be everything for all people. We need to focus on core government. We need to get out of the business of where we are trying to be everything to all people and provide services far and above what are necessary and what our voters can sustain by the tax base. We also need to work to make sure that we're increasing the number of jobs, the businesses that move here, so that our commercial tax base helps to cover the costs that we're not forcing the real estate tax base, the personal tax base to cover. A long time ago in this county, we paid a lot more money in terms of the corporate taxes, but the residential property taxes didn't have to stay as high as they were. That's how we balanced the budget. That has flipped. Residential property taxes are far more. We need to provide taxpayer relief, but we have to pay for it. The best way to do that, as Mr. Litzenberger said, is to expand the tax base. That's what I would do if I were in office. Thank you.
I don't have a rebuttal, but in order to get the Democrats to go along, you have to have negotiating skills. I was on the Housing Authority for 4 years, talking about a bunch of liberals to the far left, let me tell you. I was outnumbered 9-2. But what you do, you meet one-on-one, you wait till a couple of them are not at the meeting, and try to get something passed. It works. I'm so respected on the Planning Commission where I'm outnumbered 8-4 for the first time in over 20 years they elected a Republican to chair the CIP Budget Committee, and he's speaking to you right now. So hopefully you'll consider that when it's time to go toe-to-toe with the other side. Thank you.
Hear, hear.
We have 3 Republicans on the Board of Supervisors. How's the negotiating working out? But they're not. It doesn't work. You can't negotiate with tax and spend liberals right now. It's so hard. We're going to get up there. We say here, look, we're going to go up there and negotiate. We got to work this out. What is it getting for us? What is it doing for us, folks? It's getting us absolutely nothing. We need new leadership that can come in here and look at the problems and attack the problems that are affecting our businesses today. And I'm telling you, people keep telling me, get rid of the problems that hurt our businesses and drive our businesses out of here. And that's where we start. Look at the issues that are hurting us today, and the taxes and the fees that we put on businesses is where we're hurting each other. And that's where the economy grows. That's how we get this big machine to start churning.
I'll be brief. I think John Litzenberger brought up a good point. And I think Guevara also brought up a good point. What we need to do, what the Republicans on the Board of Supervisors need to do, is we need to provide alternatives. Every year, we should be putting up an alternative Republican budget that goes up against the Democrats' tax and spend budget. So we can go out there and make the Democrats vote it down. Make them vote it down. Make them say, we want to spend more money. We want to keep we want to keep the taxes high. And we're going to vote against the budget you put together that funds all of our core interests but reflects our desire that taxes are kept low and that spending is kept under control. That's what we need to do. And I'm committed to working with Pat Harity, John Cook, and whomever else we get. Hopefully, Jennifer Cronus in Drainsville gets elected. Whoever we have on the board, I'm committed to working with them to provide an alternative Republican budget that funds our priorities and that makes the Democrats take a tough vote that we can get out there and show to folks on both sides of the aisle that we have ideas and that's what we're running.
All right, question number 2. Recently, the Washington Post ran an article that highlighted how the Labor Resource Center is not serving its intended purpose to remove day laborers from the sidewalks, primarily those in front of the Centerville Library. In 2009, the General Assembly passed legislation that allows localities to prohibit loitering at public libraries. If elected, will you bring this up to a vote before the Fairfax County Board of Supervisors? Mr. Litzenberger.
I believe in the rule of law. And to have the people sneak across the border, have Obama let them in, and let them hang out on the corner for jobs is against the law, first and foremost. The trouble is, the federal government, the state government, they all pass these laws saying, well, go spend your money and your resources to gather up these people, arrest them, put them in jail, ship them back home. Well, then Obama releases them, go back there in a week, and we're out $500,000 for our efforts. What we need to do is put pressure on the federal elected officials to get the border secure. That's the problem. Once you get the border secure, then when you gather up the illegal immigrants looking for work, then you send them to customs and they send them back to their home countries and let them get in line with the people that obey the law if they want to come here. Thank you.
To answer the question, yes, I would bring that up for a vote. And when it fails, I would go back to the drawing board and try to find other ways for us to get rid of the folks out front of the Centerville Library where they shouldn't be in the first place. That's really the problem. So the Centerville Labor Resource Center was designed to get the day laborers off the corners, and it's done a great job of getting them out in front of the 7-Elevens, but it's put them in front of the library. I had a long email exchange with a colleague who is a very solid user of the library, very concerned about the number of day laborers hanging out there. My wife and I drive past it all the time, but we count. Last time we were out there were 16 folks out there. The problem is right now they're not doing anything against the law. They're soliciting for work, and there's no way, just by walking past and looking at anybody, we can tell what their immigration status is. We certainly can't have the police going out there and arresting them. So what do? Well, I think we have to address the root causes of the problem. Why are they in front of the library? Simple. That's where the jobs are. People keep hiring the folks from in front of the library. We have to be committed to helping solve this problem, and it's going to take everybody in Centerville to do that. And the first thing we have to do is, one, don't hire folks from in front of the library. If you need day laborers and you want to hire a day laborer, go to the CLRC. It's what it's there for. Or you can always go to Tito Munoz, who's sitting there, who always needs work. He loves to hire folks from all around and work in Prince William. Second thing you got to do, when you're hiring contractors to do work at your house, make sure they're not hiring folks from in front of the library. When the jobs aren't there, the folks in front of the library will not be there. All of these other issues around the Centerville, the Labor Resource Center, are far above our pay grade. They're far above Jim Mulmunion's pay grade. These are issues that the federal government, as Mr. Litzenberger pointed out, needs to resolve, and it's not something we're going to solve here tonight. But we can address this specific problem, and I would be more than happy to put that legislation up in front of the Board of Supervisors.
Yes, absolutely. Absolutely, it's required, it's needed, but I do want to commend Michael Fry, and he was handed a pretty tough situation, and he did support the Day Labor Center. And good news is that it's not funded with taxpayer funding, it's all private funding, and we all know that. But in essence, it is required. It is not against the law right now to stand in front of the Centerville Library and look for work or stand there. So, but it does pose a bigger problem, and John Litzenberger already alluded to that. One that we cannot defeat here on our own. But that is where you come in and where you need to contact your federal representative and voice your opinion. But if that opportunity came to me to be able to make it illegal, to stand in front of the Centerville Library, absolutely, I would support that 100%.
I would bring it in front of the board and watch it get defeated. Thank you.
Just a note, Michael Fry and I are not related. We are good friends, but we're not related. All right. Question number 3. There have been a number of situations where large cell phone towers have been placed near residential neighborhoods in the Sully district and have been very contentious. Residents are very concerned about the impacts to their community. How would you handle these special exception applications, for example, London Town Elementary? Mr. Schoeneman.
The cell phone tower issue is a difficult issue because we have to balance the needs of the community and public safety with the rights and the needs of the property owners in those areas. I think each of those land use situations needs to be addressed on a case-by-case basis because there are certain areas in Sully District that are still very rural. London Town is not one of them, but there are other areas that are rural. And they don't have all the cell phone coverage that we need. And in the event that something were to happen, say there was a car accident and someone was hurt and there was no 911 coverage because there was no cell tower, that creates a public safety issue. At the same time, the cell towers are ugly, they detract from property values, and that makes it a difficult thing to do to site them. So what I think needs to happen is what I would do, I would listen to my planning commissioner, who I hope would be Mr. Guevara, Mr. Litzenberger, if I was elected. I would do whatever we could to work with those communities, find a way to ensure that we are balancing the needs of public safety with the needs of those communities so we're not damaging their property values. If the community really doesn't want that tower, then I think we need to do what the community wants and find other solutions to do that, to provide that service that don't involve the tower. But at the end of the day, I think it's incumbent upon every elected official to listen and to try to find solutions that can work for both sides and solve these problems in a consensual way. And that's what I intend to do if I'm elected.
Well, next to the roundabout and the Day Labor Center, the next most contentious issue are cell towers. I've fought maybe 3 or 4 battles in the last 4 years over cell towers. The problem is everybody likes their smartphones, everybody likes their tablets, everybody likes their cell phones, and there isn't enough bandwidth, so they have to put up more cell towers to handle that. A supervisor in a special exception has 3 things to consider. 1, he can reject it, which the citizens like, but then the companies get upset with it. Secondly, he can recuse himself if he has a financial conflict. For example, he's getting some kind of payment from the company. For example, I had to get rid of my Verizon stock because Verizon, AT&T, and I think T-Mobile are the three big ones. And then lastly, he can vote for it, which then opens, if you have a financial conflict of interest, it opens you up to lawsuits because the citizens can sue, the opponent can sue, whether it's Verizon or AT&T. And also, as happened with the Wharton landfill, if they detect a serious conflict of interest, then the FBI will do an investigation. So the thing is, you can't have anything to do with the communications business if, in fact, you are a Sully District Supervisor, because it's a huge conflict of interest. If the supervisor isn't there, he has to recuse himself. What's left, the applicant and the county staff, and there's no way to represent the citizens. Okay, thank you.
I like public-private partnerships, and I work for a large telecommunications company, so I think I know a little bit about this. When a school gets a request from a telecommunications company that they want, the company wants to build a cell tower there, it's not an invasion where the company goes in and just puts in the cell tower and walks away. There's a process involved, and there's actually money for the school for allowing the cell tower to go up in the actual school grounds, which is fantastic, because when you look at ways of bringing in revenue, this public-private partnership that we have is something that we need to garner. We need to harness this ability to bring in the community and say, how do we help each other, right? So that to me is important. Yes, they may be ugly, they're getting better though. They really are. In fact, I almost missed it when I was walking over in, I think it was Cub Run recently, and I looked up and there it was. Looked like an old pine tree, but they're getting better. Our need for data, our need for having information right now, our public safety needs are it's what's driving this requirement for cell towers. So as information gets faster, our cell phones get much better in quality in terms of equating to the speed that you have right now at home with your Fios or your Comcast or your Cox.net. The needs for cell towers is going to be a massive requirement. But at the end of the day, this public-private partnership that we can have with companies is essential to growing the economy.
There's a financial conflict of interest, for example, on the payroll of the cell tower company. You have to recuse yourself. And if you do that, there's a way to protect the citizens.
I think he was talking about me, but that's easy. I have that integrity, just like you do, John, so I appreciate that. But it is important we understand that it's not the only company. In fact, the company I work for has very little interest in this area. They want more, obviously. You know who the big champion is. It's got the big V. That's who's been putting up the towers in the area.
All right, question number 4. It is no secret that the community at large opposed the decision to replace the 4-way stop at the intersection of Pleasant Valley Road and Pratt. Despite the fact that the budget skyrocketed from $2 million to $5.8 million, and that the completion of Route 50 has clearly relieved the pressure on the intersection, certain politicians in VDOT refuse to revalidate the need. If elected, will you be willing to force a reevaluation of the project, and if so, how? Mr. Guevara.
Forgot the order. You know, if the residents of, I think it's Bull Run and Virginia Run, right, require that, absolutely. I mean, I would be your supervisor. I'm not a supervisor. I wouldn't be supervisor just for my precinct. I'm a supervisor for all of Sully, and absolutely I would listen to my my constituents. Is it the best way of handling our funding? That's it's to be determined, right? I mean, we'd have to really look at that. But you know, one of the things that I've seen as we start a program and people want to bring it back, sometimes it's more costly to do so in my business. But essentially, I think it's important to listen to you, and it's what I promise I will do each and every day. If that's not what you want right now, and the developers got in there and shoved it down the throats of the supervisors, I would absolutely look at it again to ensure that everybody's voice was heard.
I live in Virginia Run, and I experienced firsthand all the controversy over the roundabout. We felt like Richmond kind of snuck it by us. Mr. Hugo didn't know anything about it, was what he told us. When it finally got in, we tried to fight it, and we failed. I was initially against the roundabout. I felt that the only reason it met the warrants for a roundabout was because Route 50 was shut from 6 lanes to 2 lanes. But when you analyze the problems, I talked to Michael Coyle in Supervisor Fry's office, Jeff Parnes, who's chairman of the Transportation Advisory Committee. They convinced me something had to be done. And when the roundabout was decided on, I went to all the homeowners to try to get them to support a stoplight. Supervisor Fry said he would consider it if everybody signed on. Everybody didn't sign on. Half of them didn't care. Several of them did sign on and say, yeah, we'd take a traffic light with the roundabout. As it turned out, the roundabout right now is scheduled to break ground soon. There is one outstanding issue. It's the Army Corps of Engineers' final environmental impact statement. It's not yet been received. But the funding is there. They got it through Richmond, Loudon chipped in. I don't believe there's any funding per se from Fairfax County, although they're going to take some of our parkland as a right-of-way. So overall, to reiterate, I originally posed it. When it was going to go through, I tried to get a stoplight. And whenever anything's approved, once 50 got open, I think they should take a look at the warrants to see if it does meet the criteria. Thank you.
Hi, John Litzenberger. I live in Virginia Run, and I've heard this issue come up more than anything else when I've been outdoor knocking out there. Unfortunately, as Mr. Litzenberger alluded to, I think the decision's been made, and I don't think there's any way for us to pull it back. We're having, I believe, April 15th. Is that right, Mike? Is it April 14th? 14th. The 14th, there's going to be a Pardon Our Dust meeting where I'm hoping that a lot of the community will be able to come out and talk to the contractor who's going to be doing this work. They're going to begin utility movement in May. So by the time any of us take office next January, the roundabout's going to be pretty much done. So at this point, I think that ship has sailed. What I'm committed to doing in the future in situations like this is, as I said before, we need to work with the communities, try to find solutions that have community buy-in, and we also need to make sure that we're spending our resources wisely. This was a contentious issue because it wasn't an easy issue. If you look at and you read the traffic study that VDOT did, the roundabout was supposed to be less expensive. It's not. It's going to be about $5.8 million, and they had estimated that the four-way red light would have been $4 million. At the same time, the roundabout takes fewer wetlands than the four-way stop would have, and it would take more land for the four-way red light because they had to build turn lights. So there was no easy solution to this problem, and there rarely are when you're talking about land use, when you're talking about transportation issues. That's why you need an elected official who's not only going to be willing to get in, dive deep, learn the issues, learn all the problems that are out there, who's going to take the time to not just listen to the community, but to also bring them into the process and try to explain, once you've made that decision, why that decision was made. I think Michael Fry's done a very good job of doing that, and I hope that I will be able to do as good a job as he has in this situation if it were to happen in the future.
Any rebuttals? Fifth question. Currently, only 4 unrelated people are allowed to live in a house together in Fairfax. Do you believe it is fair for the government to tell people who they are allowed to live with? If no, then how would you go about changing this rule? Sure. Currently, only 4 unrelated people are allowed to live in a house together in Fairfax County. Do you believe it is fair for the government to tell people who they are allowed to live with? So that's one yes or no, and you can explain it. And then if no, how would you change the rule? Allow more than 4 people to live together.
Well, the ordinances such as those are written by the Planning Commission, approved by the Board of Supervisors. Whenever you have an ordinance like that, the first thing that comes to mind is what happened to cause this rule to be made or this ordinance to be changed or implemented. As far as 4 unrelated people in a house, I'm not familiar with how they came up with that number. I'm sure it has to do with how many cars they have outside on in the streets. We had a problem in our neighborhood when I first moved there 27 years ago. They had grandparents with the 3 kids and spouses and 4 or 5 teenagers that had 20 cars scattered around the corner. And people didn't like that. They were taking up all the other parking spaces. Plus the teenagers aren't noted for their safe driving. So anyway, what finally happened is they used this law to clean up and impose it. So I think it has merit. And I don't think I would go about changing that. However, if there's an issue where there's a 5th person, how big is the house? How many parking spots do you have in the garage or in the driveway? I mean, there's a whole number of issues. So I need more information before I can think of that answer. Thank you.
I get a little nervous anytime government's telling people what they can do with private property. But at the same time, I think Mr. Litzenberger is absolutely right. There is a legitimate public safety issue here. There's a legitimate issue in terms of parking, and I've seen that firsthand. My old neighborhood, I lived in a townhouse community, and we had a lot of my friends from Mason who rented houses from the owners, and we would have problems with parking. But that happens, and that's the nature of living in any area where you've got a college town or where you've got renters in houses, and you get a market where you have folks that are renting out houses. They're going to try to fill up with as many people as they can so that they can make some money. I think that I don't have a general problem with that. I think I'm happy when people make money, but at the same time, I think we do need to balance public safety with those issues because it does create a problem. So what I think I would do in that situation is look at the law, determine if as Mr. Litzenberger stated, if it makes sense to have a blanket 4-person rule, or whether we should look at basing it off of the size of the house, the number of parking spaces, those types of things. And at the same time, that we make sure that we do it in an open way that gets people to come out and talk about it, because we have different communities that have different problems with this issue. And the last thing we want to do is to repeal an ordinance like this and have boarding houses spring up all across the county, or we're slamming 20 or 30 people into one house that could fit maybe 4. At the same time, again, I think we also need to make sure that we are not unnecessarily infringing on the rights of property owners to do with their property as they see fit. This isn't an easy issue. None of these issues are simple. If they were simple, we could have a computer decide it for us. But this takes information, it takes time, it takes talking, it takes listening, and that's something I'm committed to doing.
I actually had this problem with the next door neighbor, but it may not be a problem to some of the single guys after I finish the story. I actually had a adjunct facility of a sorority house move over to my next door townhouse. And we had over 4 young ladies living there. And when you have young ladies living there, you have young men who join them. That became a huge problem. We actually had 5 people. We actually had to go through the HOA, call the county to fix this issue. So yes, for a community where you have families, when it's required, that law is important, very important. I was in the military at that time. We had a 2-year-old, and we had just gotten our little one who was born, and I had to get up at dark 30. And at dark 30 is when the partying begins, and so that's when it's important for these kinds of laws. However, it's always important that we look and scrutinize these laws. Government, we need government out of our lives as much as possible. And that's important. Those are our conservative values. But we have to look at the situation, right? Look at it holistically and understand if you've got the space to have people living in the house, then obviously this needs to be looked at a little closer. So more information, I think, is important. Working with the neighbors in the local area. Michael Fry did that with our HOA when we had concerns in the past, and that's what I would do as a supervisor. I would definitely walk in, look at and talk to the neighbors, and understand what their concerns are as a community.
Any rebuttals? All right, the next question. Irrespective of your position on tax rates, are there any cuts that have been made that you would like reversed? And if so, what programs would you cut to keep the budget balanced? Mr. Schoeneman.
I think the one area I'm most concerned that we've been cutting are our libraries. I think those are a critical resource that are used by folks from all walks of life across the county. And I think the budget cuts we've seen at the libraries have had a significant impact on their usefulness and on the resources they provide to the community. I would like to see if we could find a way to reverse those cuts. In exchange, I think we need to do what the Board of Supervisors is going to be doing next year. We need to do a line of business review on every single core government service that Fairfax County provides and make sure that, one, it is a core government service. Two, it's providing what it's supposed to provide. And three, is there any waste, fraud, abuse, or bloat that we can cut out and reduce budgets and right-size the workforce? I think there are at least a couple of programs that I would look at very carefully. I think number one, we have an Office of Consumer Affairs in Fairfax County. We are the only jurisdiction in this area in Northern Virginia that has an Office of Consumer Affairs. It's usually handled at the state level. I think that's a luxury. I would look at getting rid of that, or at least trying to find a way to repurpose that into something that generates revenue rather than spending it. I also am concerned about certain benefits that our folks at the county level make. I think we have a very generous pension plan that includes a pre-funding of Social Security benefits. If you retire early, the county will pay you what you would get in Social Security from when you retire up until you're actually on Social Security. That's almost unheard of in any other industry, and it's a very generous benefit that I don't think is necessary, particularly for those of us who may consider retiring early, because typically we retire early to start a second career. So we do have more income coming in. I think if we look at those types of things, do the line of business review, find the ways to cut, we can put back money to the libraries and to our other services that we may have been cutting back on over the years in order to keep revenue the same. And also we can look at lowering the tax rate and ensuring that you guys and all of us who own property, all of us who rent and have the taxes passed through to us, that we're not paying too much in residential property taxes. That's what I would do.
You know, I think right now on the budget there's a proposal to decrease funding for school-aged children care, the SAC program as they're talking about. And I think over the years they've kind of been declining on some of the expenditures. That's an area I think that's important, especially to some of the disadvantaged individuals here in our community. And working closely with families who are more needy in our community, I see that. And I can quickly pick up on the fact that these are programs that actually do good in our community. Things where if we can get families to have their children be mentored, be helped in school while the parents are working, that's what we need to do. That's what we need as a community, to help each other. I have a neighbor who works with the Human Resources Administration department here in the county, and I asked him a question. I said, you know, what are you doing about looking at efficiencies in our government? What are you doing to make things better? He gave me a great example. One of the things that he had talked about was a technology infusion, where they took several of their activities that they have within the department and they automated the process, where they were able to get rid of more than a dozen FTEs, full-time equivalents, to essentially save us funding. As your supervisor, these are areas that I would look at with new eyes. We need this kind of leadership, where I've done it, I've proven that it works, and this is what saves us money. Not just here at the local level, but it's going to start giving us the funding that we need, also at the state level, which is important. But that's an area where if you have the experience, you bring it with you, and you have to have that proven track leadership in order to champion it.
I agree 100% with Mr. Schoeneman. They have to stop cutting the libraries. I would restore the money to the libraries because they're essential in our society. Where would I get the money? Well, they cut about $7 million from the library budget. I know because I was looking at it last week at the CIP Budget Committee. The school system's still driving $11 million worth of empty bus seats around to pick up high school kids and drive themselves to work. When you ask them, why are you driving these empty bus seats around in rush hour? The answer is the same. If the kid's car breaks down, he needs a ride to school. Well, I would tell the school system, you need to put in the permit when you issue it, that by the parents signing it, they agree to get the kid to school. And I would take that $11 million and give $7 million of it to the library to restore the funding, and they can only drive $4 million worth of empty bus seats around the county.
Any rebuttals? Next question. As supervisor, will you have any specific preferences when presented with proposals for infill development? And this is around or within already developed neighborhoods. And an add-on question, how would you balance competing requests from commercial and residential development, churches, or community use requests and current homeowners? So basically talking about infill, do you have a preference for or against? And then how do you balance the competing interests of the developers, the churches, community use purposes, and the current homeowners in the neighborhood? All right, Mr. Guevara.
Well, management is important. I think we need to focus on the fact that one of the biggest issues that I'm hearing as when I walk around the community is the fact that transportation continues to be a major problem in our district and as well as in our county. It's important that we look at our transportation issues, our development issues, and holistically identify where we've gone wrong as a county. Has our planning been poorly done that now we're trying to catch up with some of our transportation issues? I think you need to consider all of the aspects of our development and ensure that our residents are able to live a comfortable life, that our businesses are able to flourish here in our district and in our county so that the economy can continue to grow, or grows rather. But at the same time, I want to come home to my kids. I want to be with my kids. I want to spend time with my family. And so development is important for us, but we have to look at it as a management issue, and that takes leadership. That takes courage. And sometimes we have to tell developers no. Sometimes you have to tell organizations that are in the community no, and be able to tell them why. And that is the part where I will communicate that very well to you, my constituents.
Well, we're fortunate in the Sully district in that doesn't happen very often. I can think of one time in my 8 years on the planning commission. Happens all the time in Mason district, all the time in Braddock district, sometimes in Dranesville district, occasionally in Mount Vernon district. That doesn't really happen in the Sully district. But if it did, what I would do is I would look at the ordinances and the criteria for the special exception. And then when they come with a proposal, we would negotiate like we do in the other districts to try to get something that's best for the county. My preference is you save as many trees as possible. You don't have any impact on transportation. That's how you solve the infield problem. I've been doing it for 8 years. Thank you.
John's right about the infield development, obviously, what I would say, I think we have to be cognizant of the fact that Sully district is different than a lot of the other districts in Fairfax County. First of all, we live in the Occoquan watershed. It means anything we do has an impact on the primary source of drinking water for almost all of us in Northern Virginia. So anything we do, we've got to be careful that we're not changing that environmental balance that could cause problems. That is one of the reasons why it's difficult for a lot of folks to develop out here. That's why we have the mixed use of development that we have. We have the rural development out this way. In terms of infill, what I would say, the first thing we have to do is obviously we have to listen to the community. We need to make sure that the community use, it makes sense, that we're not throwing light industrial uses in the middle of a residential neighborhood. We're not granting special exceptions, as John pointed out, unless we are being very careful with them. And then I think we need to negotiate, like I said, like John said, with the developers. But when we're going through the negotiation process, what I think we need to do is we need to focus on negotiations that provide a benefit to the county in more ways than we are right now. We get too many proffers from developers for affordable housing. We get too many proffers for trees. We get too many proffers for parkland and things along those lines. I want the properties to be coming for transportation. I want them to be coming to make sure that that when we are building new developments, whether they are residential or whether they are mixed use, whether they're retail, whether they're commercial, that we are putting the infrastructure in place to ensure that those succeed. And the other thing I'm concerned about is right now we're sitting on a lot of vacant office space. I'd be very hesitant for us to build out any more office space until we can fill the space that we have sitting vacant right now. We've got 2 beautiful buildings in Westfield Business Park that were worth over $160 million 8 years ago when they were built. They're worth $60 million now because they're empty. And that kills the tax base. And I would also say in terms of prioritization, I'm always going to look for the projects that have the greatest economic impact first, and then everything else after that. Thank you.
About 6 years ago, when I was HOA president, I had a situation where we call it the Harris Teeter development over in the Navy precinct area, right above 50 and West Ox Road. One of the things that we did, and I led my community in this discussion, was the engagement of just hearing what people wanted to know about the development. Not all development is bad. And in fact, we actually got a grocery store out of there, we got some professional businesses out of there, some good restaurants, we got a church out of that as well. And soon we'll be getting some senior assisted living locations there as well. That's important for our community. But the thing that I learned the most, and I worked very closely with Mike Fry on this, was that your engagement is important, and I would lead that. I would lead that fight. I'd make sure that the community was always engaged in ensuring that your voice is heard, especially when it comes to development.
All right, as next question. As supervisor, and Mr. Schoeneman kind of touched on this with his answer in the last question. As supervisor, how would you vote on affordable housing projects?
It depends on how we define affordable. I think the problem, one of the things we've seen in the county is we have defined affordable housing to be up to and including 120% of the average median income. The average median income for a family of 4 in Fairfax County is $120,000. So if we're going up to 120% above, to 20% above that 120,000, we're talking about families that make $130,000, $140,000 a year, and they're qualifying for affordable housing. That's a bad idea. I think that is subsidizing folks who don't need to be subsidized. That's a waste of money, and it's something we need to look at. I'm concerned also with the amount of workforce housing that we have in the county. I think that's a legitimate issue. So I think we need to look at our criteria pretty closely. I think we need to make sure that we are not subsidizing folks that don't need the money, and that we are focusing all of our resources on the most needy in the community, not folks who have jobs, who work, and who can pay their bills, but on the folks that are struggling to get by. I think we don't spend enough time looking at those folks. We spend too much time helping out the folks who don't need the help. That's one thing I would look at very carefully when I'm looking at affordable housing issues. And I would also just simply point out, whenever government sticks its finger into the marketplace and puts its thumb on the scale, it causes problems. The market is what the market is. It costs what it costs to live here. And if we put our finger on the scale, what that does, it drives wages down. It makes jobs here cost less and pay less, and that drives people out of the county. I think that's a bad idea. So at the end of the day, when it comes to affordable housing, I think we need to look very carefully at that. Don't subsidize folks who don't need to be subsidized, and focus our attentions where they need to be on the most vulnerable in our communities.
Well, as your housing commissioner for 4 years, and I see the current housing commissioner in the back for the last 8, I'm generally against subsidized housing. I think, unfortunately, the other side of the aisle has placed subsidized housing in districts to try to influence elections. I saw that firsthand. I am in favor of low-cost housing that helps grow the economy. I'll give you an example. I met with the head of the Westfield Business Group. They are concerned as the high-end companies come in, like defense contractors. They have aerospace, for example, they have 2,700 employees. Over 90% have masters and PhDs because they design satellites for the Air Force. They still have the guys that maintain the servers, custodians. They need low-cost housing. If you provide enough low-cost housing for those people to live near their workplace, that is an enhancement. That's one of the reasons aerospace came here. We had market rate, low-cost housing in the vicinity, and they were able to come here, and everybody could get housing at a reasonable price in the local area. Of course, they came from Los Angeles, and Jerry Brown chased them out, but he won't go there.
Jerry Brown, he's still there, isn't he? He doesn't go away. You know, it's important that, that we have those kinds of incentives. I think if we look at affordable housing where there's an incentive for economic growth, that's what we need. But I've seen the other spectrum as well. I've seen the other side as I work for Western Fairfax Christian Ministries, where I see teachers, Fairfax County teachers, come in and ask for help. Ask for help to pay the rent, ask for help with gas money, ask for help with groceries. That's the part where I think we as Republicans, as conservatives, ought to always extend our hand. And so from that perspective, it's important that we continue to have that compassion. That's important that we be looked at as the individuals that will help the community. But it's also important that we know why we can't keep our $124,000 median income, is that right? Because you're getting taxed. You continue to get taxed. You don't stay with that money. And so as you're doing your taxes, keep that in mind, right? What do we have now? 8 days or 9 days before you got to turn in your taxes? Think about that, right? We don't keep all of our money, and so we have to balance that. I think it's important that if affordable housing development grows the economy, that's what we need to focus on, not subsidizing individuals who can definitely afford it, and that's what I would do as your supervisor.
No rebuttals? All right, next question. This is a pretty easy one. Do you support the recent Board of Supervisor pay increases? If so, why? If not, why? Mr. Rivera.
No, absolutely not. And I said that already, and I'll say it again. I don't support it, especially in a time when the economy isn't growing here in Sully District. It's important that the Sully District, or the supervisors rather, not increase their pay. As well, neither should the school board. And that's a question that Kathy Smith also has to answer. In hard economic times, we all have to tighten our belt. We've all been there. We've been there. And this is a slap in the face to the residents of Fairfax County, and I do not support it. Right now, it is my understanding, and continues to be my understanding, this is a part-time job, and it should remain so. Because when you make a full-time job out of this location, and there are 130,000 residents here in Sully District, I think that there's opportunity where we can better, as supervisors, utilize that that time. And so I think that what we need to focus on here is growing the economy and not giving pay raises to supervisors. And for that matter, I would also urge the school board to consider not raising their pay 100%. Supervisors are looking for a $20,000 increase. We're looking at a 100% increase for school board right now. Unbelievable.
I agree with Mr. Guevara. I think if I had been on the board, I would have voted against the $20,000 a year pay raise. He brought the school board up. That really frosted me. I ran against Kathy Smith in 2007, and in 2008, she gave herself a 67% pay raise. Now, this year, she's going to get an 88% pay raise. So I can see why she couldn't keep up with the property taxes. She just keeps raising ours, giving it to herself. As far as the pay raises for the county employees, it really hurts morale when they see the elected officials basically take advantage of the system. Their productivity goes down. Their attitudes are such that why am I being taken advantage of while the elected officials take care of themselves? And it just creates an all-around unpleasant situation. So I would have voted against the pay raise. Thank you.
Well, we're 3 for 3. I would have voted against the pay raise as well. And just to point out something that either of my colleagues did, if we had voted against it, we would have been the deciding vote on the board and the pay raise would not have gone through. What elections count for, folks, you know, we may have a very solid Democratic majority on the Board of Supervisors, but there are times when some of the Democrats wise up and realize voting a pay increase for themselves in an election year, granted that's the only way they can do it, but still doing it is a bad idea, and they voted against it. We could have stopped this. We had one more supervisor on the board who was willing to say no. Now, I think it's very easy for us to stand up here and say we wouldn't have to support something that we didn't vote on, that we're going to take advantage of when we get elected. And that's why I've already committed that I will donate the $20,000 pay increase to 4 Fairfax County charities if I'm elected. You give the money to Facets and Cornerstones, or 2 area charities that deal with homelessness. I'm going to give it to Shelter House, which is a charity that works with victims of domestic violence. I'm going to give $5,000 to the Assisted Pregnancy Center, which deals with women who are vulnerable to abortion, to help them make an alternative that protects the life of the unborn child. That's what I've committed to do, because I'm going to put my money where my mouth is. I have a day job. I love my day job. I'm going to keep doing my day job. I'm going to do my best as a Sully supervisor, but I don't need the money. I'm going to make sure it goes back to the community where it belongs.
No rebuttals? That's what I thought. Last week when we did this, there was a rebuttal almost every single time. All right, last question, so we can give you time to summarize. But the last question is, what is the biggest problem that faces the Fairfax County Board of Supervisors, and how will you solve it, keeping in mind that it's likely that Democrats will still have a majority after this fall's election?
There are a lot of obvious answers. We can talk about taxes, we can talk about the budget, we can talk about transportation, we can talk about schools. I'm going to talk about something we haven't talked about tonight. I want to talk about transparency. I think there's a crisis of confidence right now in the county about the Board of Supervisors, particularly about the handling of the gear shooting, the handling of the McKenna case by the Sheriff's Department. I think there's a belief in the county that the Board of Supervisors is not listening, that they're not paying attention, and that when citizens in the county have a concern and they bring that concern up, they're ignored. That needs to change. We have a crisis of confidence, not just in government at the local level, but in government at all levels in this country. It is the most, in my opinion, the most stressing problem that we have right now, because you look at any elected official, regardless of party, and you'll find people who think that every single word that comes out of their mouth is a lie. Everything they do is designed to benefit themselves at the expense of their constituents. That government is doing everything it can to take as much as it can and ignore the needs of the community. That needs to stop. We need to be open and transparent. When I served on the Fairfax County Electoral Board, and I got a lot of heat for this, we went out of our way to be transparent and open about everything. I was on Twitter, I was on Facebook, I even went on national television, on MSNBC, sadly enough, to talk about elections that happened here in Fairfax, because I wanted the voters to know that everything we did was on the up and up, and everything was fair, so that they could have faith and trust that what we were doing was the right thing, and that we were willing to take the heat if folks had problems with it. That's what the Board of Supervisors need to do. We need to create a transparent, open, and honest government, create that, because right now I don't think it's there. We do that, and we can finally start, I think, to heal the divisions and a lot of the concerns that we have with not only with our elected officials, but with our functioning system of representative government. We need to fix it. Because if we don't, folks, I can't tell you what's going to happen. But it's going to be bad. Thank you.
You know, I think transparency is important, but you have to have courage to be transparent. You can say you're going to be transparent, but the fact of the matter is that if your life has not shown those actions, then me telling you that I'm going to be transparent is going to be worth nothing if I were to be your supervisor. The problem right now is that we're not courageous enough right now in our leadership. The fact is, 20% of our entire Fairfax County budget is services. 80% is salaries and benefits. And when we look at where we're going to tighten our belt, everything's on the table. And people aren't talking about this because some people are too close to unions. Some people work for the unions. Some people need to understand that when the economy is hurting and when the people of Fairfax County are hurting, we need to have the best interest of the entire community. That's courage. That's leadership. And it doesn't come about talking about it, it's about doing it. And the leadership is the individuals that have been proven with their track record in serving their community, in defending their country, in protecting their family. That's what we need from our Board of Supervisors. And folks, I'm asking for your vote because that's what I'm going to bring. I'm going to take the hard issues up and I'm going to make sure that I fight for you each and every single day. Thank you.
I believe the number one issue, once again, is the $100 million shortfall in the budget. Now, I pointed out the foolhardiness of driving empty bus seats around the county at rush hour. Whenever the budget's in tough position, miraculously the Democrats elect a Republican to chair the committee, even though they outvoted me 8-4. Going through that, if you encourage people to be open and transparent, like Brian and John alluded to, then they come up with ideas. We sat there and I saw 3 Democrats go right through the community services budget and point out where they could save some money. We have to do this countywide. Did you know that the Fairfax County schools have 9,000 classroom teachers, about 11,000 staffers, most of them in the headquarters? That, to me, looks like there's an opportunity to save some money there. Vehicles. The county has 15,000 vehicles. They have 15,000 employees, so that's an average of about 1 vehicle per employee. Of course, some of those are dump trucks. You don't want those, or the trash trucks. You don't want those counting, but still, if the average is out to about 1 vehicle per employee. We don't need that many vehicles. So if you start looking under the rocks, looking under the logs, and you find the empty bus seats and the vehicles and all this other stuff, you can come up with $100 million. But you have to have somebody there that the other side can trust or at least work with. And I think I fill that square. Thank you.
Any rebuttals? All right, then we're going to let you each have a 3-minute wrap-up. John.
Thank you. Well, folks, thank you very much for coming out here tonight. This is an important race for Sully District and for Fairfax County. We need to keep this place Republican. And I want to thank John Litzenberger, I want to thank Brian Schoeneman for being here. Mr. Fry, thank you. Vicki, Ben, thank you. Mr. Hubbard, thank you very much for this evening. Folks, thank you. This has been a phenomenal opportunity to learn about the district, to be able to go out and talk to my neighbors and meet business owners, and get to know the issues that affect Sully District residents so very much. Met Dottie, love Dottie. Carrie, thank you very much for your friendship. You know, these are the things that we as community do. And when you've lived in the community for 15 years, and you understand your neighbors, and you understand the needs of the community, this is the kind of supervisor that you want to elect. You want somebody who didn't move here just to run for office. You didn't want somebody who has lived here for so long and has lost touch base with the district. Those are the kinds of individuals we need to be electing here in Sully. And that's what we want. We need fresh, new faces that represent our party and carry that conservative value. That's what we want. We read about it in the newspapers. We listen to it in the news. Well, guess what, folks? Here's your opportunity. We need this leadership so that we can defeat Kathy Smith in November once and for all. And I'm asking for your vote. I'm asking for your support because that's the only way we're going to win in November. Thank you.
Well, I feel that based on my 12 years working for the county as one of your political appointees as a commissioner, I seriously feel that I know how to get things done. If you went to my kickoff where there were 130 people there, 104 Republicans signed it. There were 26 Democrats who did not sign it. Why? Because they think I can get the job done. and I have been doing that. I was elected unanimously to be the budget chair of the CIP committee. I've worked tirelessly with Democrats in both the Housing Authority and the Planning Commission to get things done. I think in the end, as I said, I would be I'm fortunate, I'm a retired military officer and I could work full-time at this job, and I intend to, because I feel that to get things done, you have to go out and meet with people constantly. You gotta go out and meet with the homeowners, meet with the business community, meet with the county staff. It takes lots and lots of time, and I'm willing to make that commitment, so I hope you'll remember my name at Westfield High School on April 25th.
All right, we're getting close to go time here in the ballgame, so let me wrap this up very quickly. Thank you all for coming out tonight. I think we have a benefit in Sully District that many folks would kill for. We've got 3 solid Republican candidates to choose from. I think no matter who we nominate on April 25th, I hope it's me, but no matter who it is, I am 100% in favor of that person. And I will be out there on Election Day, whether I'm campaigning for myself or I'm campaigning for one of these gentlemen, to make sure that we beat Kathy Smith in November. But this race is about more than beating the Democrats, folks. It's about more than simply winning an election. It's about making sure that the Board of Supervisors does what we want it to do, and that our Sully supervisor represents us. So you're not just voting for someone to beat the Democrats, you're voting for someone to do the job. And it's up to you, each of you that live here in Sully, take the next 19 days, look, listen, read, find out about us, find out about our backgrounds, find out about the differences between us, because there's a lot that's the same. We have a lot in common, all 3 of us do. And I think you can see that based on the answers to the questions that you saw here tonight, but there are differences, and those differences are important. At the end of the day, elections are about people. They're about trust. They're about you deciding in your best judgment who you think the best person for the job is going to be, and that's the person that you should be casting your vote for on April 25th. I'm going to work over the next 19 days from now until the 25th. I'm going to knock on your door. I'm going to call you. I'm going to ask for money. I'm going to ask for your vote. I'm going to ask for your time. I'm going to ask for your ideas, and I'm going to ask for your dedication. And working together, we can keep Fairfax County the best place to live, work, and raise a family in America. And it starts now. Thank you all very much, and let's go Duke.